My name is Arjun. I'm 26 years old, and for the past year I've been working the night shift at the Riverwood Inn, a small family-run lodge just off the old highway near the town of Misty Creek. It's a quiet place, usually frequented by truckers taking a break or the occasional family passing through. My shift runs from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and most nights the most exciting thing that happens is the coffee machine finishing its cycle. The lobby is modest. There's a wooden front desk that's seen better days, a seating area with two worn-out maroon couches and a coffee table stacked with old magazines, and a dimly lit hallway that leads to the guest rooms. Behind the main desk is my sanctuary, a small back office with a monitor for the security cameras, a comfortable chair, and a mini fridge where I keep my dinner. This particular incident, which I remember with terrifying clarity, began on a cold, foggy Tuesday around 1:15 a.m. The automatic doors hissed open and a man walked in. He was tall and lean, probably in his early 40s, with sharp features and hair that looked like it had been hastily combed. He wore a dark, waterproof jacket and carried a single black backpack. He introduced himself as Vikram. "Need a room for the night," he said, his voice a low, calm monotone. "Of course, sir," I replied, going through the standard procedure. I found him a room on the second floor, 207. I swiped his credit card, the machine beeped in approval, and I handed him the key card. He took it, but instead of leaving immediately, he held my gaze. His eyes were intensely focused, as if he was memorizing my face. It lasted only a few seconds, but it was long enough to make a knot form in my stomach. Then, without another word, he turned and disappeared down the hallway towards the stairs. I tried to shrug it off and went back to my book. About an hour later, a movement in the lobby caught my eye. I looked up, and there he was, Vikram. He was back. He didn't approach the desk. Instead, he simply walked over to the couches and sat down, facing the blank, dark television screen. He sat perfectly still, his hands on his knees, not reading, not on his phone, not sleeping, just staring. This was unusual. Guests sometimes couldn't sleep, but they'd usually be on their devices or reading a magazine. His utter stillness was unnerving. I decided to test the waters. I got up and walked over to the vending machine in the corner to get a chocolate bar. As I walked across the lobby, I could feel the weight of his stare. I didn't need to look directly at him to know his head had turned and his eyes were tracking my every move until I was safely back behind the counter. The knot in my stomach tightened. Driven by a growing sense of unease, I decided to check the registry for room 207. To my utter confusion, it was listed as vacant. My heart skipped a beat. I frantically checked the digital check-in log. His name, Vikram, was nowhere to be found. I searched the transaction history. There was no record of any payment from the last few hours. The card swipe, the approving beep, it had all been a facade. The system had no record of him ever being a guest. A cold dread washed over me. I immediately picked up the internal phone and dialed room 207. It rang over and over into an empty silence. No one picked up. I then accessed the key card log, which records every time a door is unlocked. For room 207, the log was completely blank for the entire night. He had never even gone to the room. I slowly looked up from the monitor and over to the seating area. Vikram was still there, a silent statue staring at a dead screen. He had been sitting there for over an hour, inside my lodge, without any legitimate reason to be there. My mind raced. I needed to confront him, but I was terrified. I waited another 20 minutes, my eyes glued to him. Finally, I mustered the courage. I walked over, my steps echoing in the quiet lobby. "Excuse me, sir, is everything all right with your room?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He turned his head slowly. His expression was still a blank slate. "I couldn't sleep," he stated flatly. Then he turned his head back towards the television, effectively dismissing me. I retreated to the desk, my hands trembling visibly now. I called my manager, but she was half asleep and told me just to monitor the situation and call the police if he became a threat. But he was already a threat, His very presence was a threat. Over the next hour, his behavior became more erratic and terrifying. He would get up and wander. I saw him on the security camera, standing at the far end of a hallway, perfectly still in the shadows. He spent 10 minutes inside the stairwell. At one point, he was just loitering around the vending machines, his eyes fixed on the front desk. Around 3:30 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I called the police on the non-emergency line and explained the situation. As I was on the phone with them, I saw him move again on the camera. He wasn't wandering anymore. He was standing directly outside the door of another guest's room, room 110. He was just standing there, listening, or perhaps waiting. That was the final straw. I hung up and immediately dialed 911. "There's an intruder in my lodge, and he's standing outside a guest's door right now," I whispered frantically to the dispatcher. Just as I ended the call, the lobby doors opened, and Vikram walked back in. This time, he walked right up to the front desk and leaned over the counter and invaded my personal space. "Is there any food?" he asked, his voice a low, guttural whisper. My blood ran cold. "The vending machines," I stammered. A small, cold smile played on his lips. Then he turned and walked away, returning to his spot on the couch. The next 10 minutes were an eternity. I sat frozen, staring at the clock, praying for the police to arrive. Finally, at 3:55 a.m., I saw the flashing red and blue lights reflect off the lobby windows. 2 police officers entered. I practically leapt from my chair and pointed a shaking finger at Vikram, who was still sitting calmly on the couch. The officers approached him. They spoke to him for a few minutes, asked for his ID, and then escorted him out. One of the officers came back to me. "The card he gave you was a stolen, prepaid card with no funds. He had no luggage, no reservation. He was just using the fake check-in as a way to get inside. We're charging him with trespassing and possession of a stolen financial instrument." After they left, the silence in the lodge was deafening. I didn't move from behind the desk until the sun came up. The part that haunts me to this day is the realization of how long he was there, moving freely through the hallways, standing outside people's rooms, and watching me from the shadows, all under the pretense of being a guest. I will never know what his true intentions were that night, and that unknown is what scares me the most.